Music royalty in the house. Armin van Buuren, give it up for Armin. That's right.
We're here at Discogs, so I think it's good to start by saying I'm still a vinyl fan. I love playing music from vinyl. And I think I was one of the last ones to give up playing vinyl.
When was the last time you did a vinyl set?
Actually, I did a vinyl set recently, and I noticed how long these vinyls are.
9 minutes and stuff.
9 minutes, 10 minutes, but that has a beauty to it as well. I'm very nostalgic if it goes about vinyl. That's why I can't throw anything away. You know, all these pieces of oil, basically, oil shaped in the form of a vinyl. They mean a lot to me, and some of them I really treasure dearly. I have fond memories. I want to start off with this one. This is basically the record that got me into trance music, funnily enough. This is what it all started with. The original version of this, or the first version I heard, was a B2 on an Italian release. And it took me ages to find the original extended version, because on the Italian vinyl that I had, it was the B2 and it was faded out at the end. Kind of missing the point of this whole record.
Is this your original copy then?
Well, I recently got this from my best friend, who had 2 copies but refused to give me one. And I think about 2 years ago, he gave me, as a birthday gift, he gave me this one. It's a track by Matt Derry under his name Lee Kwan. It's called Point Zero. And it is really, when I heard this, I was like, yeah, man, what's this music? And you have to remember, at the time, trance wasn't even a genre. It was just, I don't know what they call it, club music or club house, or I don't know.
So what year was this? It would have been 95, 96?
Something like that, yeah, 95. You can already hear all the elements of a trance tune that we know now. You know, now we do this a lot, and it's been copied ever since. But, you know, I think Matt Derry is one of the first ones to really jump on this sound and kind of make it a genre on its own, which it wasn't at the time, so...
What made you want to kind of pursue the trance kind of genre when you started DJing yourself?
Well, trance music wasn't popular when this record came out. When I did Blue Fear back in 1996, it wasn't a popular sound. It was just something that I absolutely loved. I guess it had to do with my dad, who used to listen to a lot of Jean-Michel Jarre and Vangelis and all that kind of sounds. And I just love the sounds of synthesizers combined with melodies. That's always been more my preference than techno. I love techno, don't get me wrong, but to me the melodies always had a preference. So, and this was so melodic and so emotional, and it really transported me to this other world. You have to remember, I was 18, 19 years old.
How did you hear this then? Where did you hear it?
Well, I heard it as a B2 to another release.
But being played by a friend at home, or?
No, just a record. I owned this record, and this was on the B-side. Particularly this breakdown. I couldn't believe it. Like, it was so ethereal, it was so dreamy. It reminded me of Vangelis, it reminded me of synthesizer music that they used to release at the end of the 70s. And I didn't even know it was a genre, and then later, it became this thing. I don't know how much this is on Discogs right now, how much a vinyl costs. I'm sure the purists get up. Yeah, let's look it up. But yeah, this is the original on Seca recordings. I think this is the promo. Yeah, very special record for me. This is the record that got it all started for me back in 1996. I released a track under my, just as my normal name, Armin Blue Fear. This was made in my parents' bedroom when I was 18 years old, 19 years old. This was championed by Sasha and Digweed, and it was even included on the Northern Exposure compilation. Compilation is a CD where you put multiple tracks in together. I don't know if anybody knows what that is. It's not a playlist, it's actually a CD that they make.
I bet you were made up when it got licensed for Northern Exposure.
Well, I remember showing my dad my bank statement when I got the first royalty statement from just this track on Northern Exposure. And it was so much money, I was able to buy a big portion of my studio that I used to own for years, and basically brought me to where I'm sitting today. So I owe a lot to this track, and it was made with a mixer disco mixer without EQ, whatever, an Akai S2800 sampler, and a Yamaha TX81Z bassline, and an old cracked version of Cubase on an Atari 1040 ST. And because of the minimal sample space, I was forced to use the 2 megabytes internal memory. So that's why I created this sound, which was actually a really short sound, but I was able to manipulate it with Akai's synthesis options in the S2800. This sound you hear coming in. But this was made with the minimal, very limited means, but it still sounds, well, if I can say so, it still sounds pretty decent to this day.
Just goes to show you don't need a whole banks and studios full of equipment.
It's all about the chef, not the kitchen. Absolutely.
Do you ever still play this out?
I played it out in my radio show, and I played it out when I did a vinyl set years ago. It's pretty long, but at the time this was, Sasha and Digweed used to play this every set at their Delta Heavy tour in the US. So yeah, it's pretty. It takes a while for the melody to come in. The melody later was copyrighted, was stolen by Mauro Picotto on his track Like This, Like That. And he admitted it, so he gave me the full share. Yeah, and it was I still remember sitting in my underwear at my mom and dad's bedroom at home, making this tune on a Friday night. It's pretty crazy. It was actually meant as the B-side for the track that's now the B-side called X Marks the Spot, which was supposed to be the A-side. And I quickly did this as some sort of a B-side, and always the tracks you do quickly always end up being the A-side.
How did you get it signed?
This is signed by Cyber Records. It's a label owned by Johan Groenewegen, and he had a record store in Leiden, my hometown. And I remember taking the bus to the record store and giving him a cassette tape with this track, and he was just blown away, like, what is this? He even told me that they played this at the break during a Manchester United game in the stadium. Yeah, that's how special that record was, and it basically got me on the radar of a lot of other DJs, and it's what started it all.
How did it feel when you got your first bit of vinyl back in your hand?
Yeah, it's always a special moment. I do miss that. Now I guess we have the Friday morning when you hope that your new track is on New Music Friday, but to see your track actually on a vinyl, that's just such a powerful thing. I still think physical copies, there's a beauty to that for sure. One of the things, there's a lot to say about modern technology, and I absolutely love the fact that you can get your music online now, and I think it's a great way. But there was a romance to going to a record store. I know some of you that are here remember the days when you were walking into a vinyl store. You had the smell of vinyl, and there was loads of people there. And then if you were nice, it wasn't too busy in the room, the guy behind the counter would give you a stack of vinyl to go check out on the side, And the guy behind the counter always used to play vinyl in the store. And I always remember that the tracks he played on the speakers in the store were always better than the ones he gave me to check out. And multiple times I went to him and I said, "Can I have that?" "No, it's a promo copy. Sorry, you can't." And right now, I don't know how old you guys are, but right now the idea of something selling out is completely, he's gone. But at the time, it was super hard to actually have a record. And sometimes Sasha and Digweed or Carl Cox or anybody would have a vinyl for like a year before A, we knew the title, and B, before we could actually purchase it. And sometimes tracks were only 1,000 copies, so you had to wait for a few more months to the vinyl actually appear. This is one of those tracks that the guy in the record store was playing. It was an import from Detroit, I think. This is made by the guys from Underground Resistance. And I don't know, this track it's very, very basic, very, very elemental. But for me, this is trance from the Underground Resistance guy. And I remember hearing that flanging effect of the sound, and it just transported me into this world. This is what I want to make. And it still gives me goosebumps hearing this. I had to wait for a year for another copy to arrive. And when I got the copy, the hole wasn't in the middle of the vinyl. So the vinyl would drift like this. So the sound would go, and especially on the main lead sound that's in this track. That sounded horrible. So it took me another few months to get a decent copy, and that's this one. as I've always cherished. You may not like this track. It's very, very experimental, but yeah, this is, for me, this is what trance music is all about. And what I love about this track is that you can hear that it wasn't actually sequenced. It was just made on the fly. You know what I mean? So he just probably had a couple of loops and a big mixer, and he was just opening and closing channels as he was composing the track live. Because you hear him opening the 909 snare channel multiple times, and it's so raw. Very, very underground, very dark, very, very minimalistic. Yeah, I love it. It just still gives me goosebumps listening to this, because I remember me and my friends, we used to go out and we used to just, dance, with just only a stroboscope, which was a new thing at the time, a stroboscope. Think about it, it's crazy. And we used to ask the DJ to play this one, which was very rare if he had it. And if he had it, he would just dance in front of the stroboscope like that, like madman. And that's what I remember, going out with my mates, listening to this, this is like, if you like a track like this, then you're pretty far up there.
Is this more recent, this track?
This is a track from 2002. This is Darren Tate and Jono Grant, Let the Light Shine In. It's now considered a huge trance classic. And why this record is so special, it's because I remember getting the promo and remember getting it from Mondo Records. Somebody telling me that I was one of the first ones to actually have it. And at that time, I started my radio show, A State of Trance. And I didn't know what the hell I was doing, because I was doing a 2-hour radio show just from vinyl. A lot of people told me, you're absolutely crazy doing a 2-hour radio show about one genre, trance music. And at the time, that was completely unheard of. And a lot of the people that said I was crazy to do so, they now have their own radio shows. Funny story. But the reason why I chose this track is because I remember I had a tour planned with Gatecrasher, one of the big clubbing brands at the time. Gatecrasher being a club in Sheffield, up in northern England.
Did you ever dress up as a Crasher kid?
No, I didn't have the furry boots, but I did have the pants and the spiky hair and stuff. So I was a little bit of a Crasher kid. And they had a tour in Australia and in New Zealand, and the tour kicked off on a Friday or Saturday night. I believe it was a Saturday night at St. James Theatre in Auckland. And I played this track on my radio show on a Thursday night, and immediately went to the airport and flew to New Zealand. Now, I was pretty sure that I was the only one to have a copy of this vinyl, and I was the only one to play this on episode, 60 or 70 of A State of Trance. I can't remember what it was. And I walked into St. James Theatre to do my DJ set, and it was 2 people holding up a sign requesting this track. Now, you have to understand how revolutionary that was. I mean, now we all communicate with people from New Zealand like it's nothing. But at the time, New Zealand was really far away. It still is pretty far away. It's like, 24-hour journey or whatever. So I came there, and I had 2 people standing in the room requesting this particular track. Now, why is that so important? Well, for me, it was important because it showed me the power of online radio. And it was actually the aha moment about A State of Trance. It was the reason okay, so people actually do pay attention and they do listen to this radio show. So check this out. I was doing a radio show in the Dutch language, only in Amsterdam on cable radio. So how the hell does somebody at the other side of the world know this track? Well, there was a couple of guys in the north of the Netherlands, and I actually met them. They illegally streamed my radio show from the cable radio via Shoutcast. Anybody remember Shoutcast? It was the very first option on the internet to do streaming from A to B. And it was illegal, but apparently there was these cool kids, and they all loved trance music. So these people were broadcasting my radio show. There were fans in New Zealand listening to that. And at the time, you had this thing called ICQ. Now we call it Discord or, I don't know, Twitter or whatever. But at the time, that was the only social media that was there. There was a chat room called #OurMind. And there were the purists in that chat room chatting about this track and saying how much they loved it. So you have to understand how revolutionary that was for me, because that made me realize, wow, I can actually communicate with my fans. They listen to my music. Well, this is not my music, obviously, but it's just the music that I love and I'd love to support. So that's why I always remember of that moment in St. James Theatre in Auckland thinking, internet's going to change the world. And it did.
That's the power of the internet, isn't it? And that somebody like yourself going to a full cover, you're probably the only person who has that record in the whole continent or whatever, but somehow people already know it. Now, we don't think twice about something like that now so much, but it was so important for breaking new music around the world.
Well, think of it in a broader perspective. I wouldn't be sitting here if it wasn't for that moment. Me realizing, okay, something is going to happen with the internet. I think that was around the time we had the internet bubble, when everybody invested in, and all the stock markets went down because a lot of people thought, oh, the internet's not going to be anything. But then I realized I could build my career on just transmitting. And guess what? Via ICQ, the people were talking back. And I dare to say that that has been the secret of my success. And one of the reasons why I'm still sitting here.
So you mean if you hadn't started your radio show, you wouldn't have still had the longevity in your career?
That's why I'm so happy that I'm able to share this story, because that's why this record it's still one of the greatest trance records ever made, I believe. But apart from that, it's also a very personal story. And I remember playing it in St. James Theatre and it going off when the track was just 48 hours old,
And the two guys who'd requested it, what were they doing when this was playing?
I don't remember exactly, but they must be going bonkers, I think. So I've always been the biggest fan of Oliver Lee, LSG. He was cool and trance before we were all cool and trance. I don't know. He's just amazing. And he had this project called LSG. And this is the album. This was really expensive at the time for me. I barely had the money to buy this. And I remember gathering all my savings to buy this. It was his brand new album. I just wanted to have it. So a lot of people ask me, so what is your all-time favorite trance track? It's such an easy question. It's so difficult to answer. Because I have
what is your all-time favorite trance track?
Oh, then I have to say LSG Netherworld. Don't ask me why this is my favorite track, but it has everything for me that trance music is so powerful. It has the melody, it has the drive, the tension, you don't really know where it's going, kind of the unexpectedness of it.
Really interesting percussion as well.
Yeah, it's very, very electronic. At the time, it was brand new sounding. And I remember driving home on my bicycle, and I couldn't wait just to drive home super fast because I wanted to play it, that excitement is now gone with Dropbox and Beatport and whatever, but now you can just listen to it whenever you want, but there's a beauty to it, yeah.
What's this next one? Sarah McLachlan.
Sarah McLachlan, wow. Well, we all know her from her performance on Delirium Silence. I remember Reese Fulber telling me the story about Sarah McLachlan walking into the studio and doing Silence basically in one take. That's now still considered one of the biggest dance records of all time. Gabriel and Dresden. Dave Dresden is a good friend of mine. I actually made a track with them in 2004 called Zocalo. I worked with them, and super great, inspiring DJ duo. And they had their heyday when they were, at Motorcycle, As the Rush Comes, and all their productions were just out of this world. And Josh Gabriel being the engineer, and Dave Dresden being the super genius with all his comments about everything that he learned. And I had the honor to work with them in the studio, seeing how they worked. And they did an official remix for Sarah McLachlan Fallen that to this day remains also one of my favorite trance tracks. They took her original vocal, kept the song, paid so much appreciation and homage to the original song that Sarah McLachlan wrote, but made it into such a powerful dance music song. And this shows you that pop and dance music can live together and still have the same euphoria. I mean, we don't have time to properly listen to this track through its entirety, but I highly recommend anybody listening to Fallen by Sarah McLachlan, the Gabriel and Dresden remix.
And if you were playing something like a 3-hour set, at what stage of the set would you drop this?
I would drop this, I think, in the first hour. Well, this is pretty fast. It's 137 BPM, so I can't really put it when I start 128. You know, probably the end of the first hour, I guess.
Did you used to count the BPMs on your vinyl?
Yep.
And write it on them?
Yep. Every track in the corner has the BPM and the minor chord. But I manually had to look what that was. I had a little harmonica in my studio to listen to what key it was in.
Harmonica?
Yeah. Yeah.
How did you count the BPM?
I had a BPM counter that helped me. Sometimes I used Ableton just to sync it up manually. But yeah, I had a BPM counter and I just let it run long enough till it wasn't drifting so much anymore. And then it helped me a lot. And now I have this one digitally, of course. A lot of the stuff I have is now available digitally. But there's a beauty to the vinyl sound. I don't know how else.
The warmness.
The warmness, yeah.
I mean, in the vinyl days, I don't know about you, but it would take me ages just to get them in time.
Yeah, it was actually difficult to mix at the time, yeah. Actually, the first time I ever DJ'd in the UK was at Cream in Liverpool, in the courtyard. And I remember it was my first time playing on a rotary mixer like this one. I was just telling Carl when I walked in, this reminds me of that. You have to imagine I was 22 years old and I walked into a British super club for the first time and I knew it was my big moment. And I walked into the booth with my bag of vinyl and I saw a rotary mixer. And I'd never mixed on it before. There was 2,000 people standing in front of me. But I managed it.
How did it go, that first set?
It went well. Actually, I still have a DAT recording of it somewhere. This is my track, Burned with Desire. This is very special because it basically meant my breakthrough in the US. This was signed by Ultra Records, thanks to a guy called Elliot. And Elliot was part of that group of online enthusiasts in the Armin chat group. And he was listening to my radio show at the time. And I just dropped my new artist album called 76, because I'm born in 76 and I'm a nerd. So the album takes exactly 76 minutes. I was in the studio together with Justine Suissa, who I met through Michael. Justine Suissa came to the Netherlands when I had absolutely no experience whatsoever in songwriting. But I wrote a 4-chord melody, and it's actually on the vinyl as well. And I wanted to create a beautiful lyric track. So I instead of writing a dance track with her, I wrote some sort of an album track that was more meant as a chill out track. And it was Burned with Desire, the original version. So this was meant for the 76 album, and it wasn't meant as a club track. It wasn't meant as a release. There was another single called Yet Another Day with Scottish singer Ray Wilson. And I met Patrick Moxey in the office of Ultra Records in 2003, and I was so shy walking in that office, you know. Look, Mom, I'm signed to a US label, and it was such a big deal for me at the time. And I played him this track, and he absolutely loved it. And he said, "Why don't you do a club mix of it?" I said, "I can't remix this. It's a chill out track." And he said, "You know, you can do it." And I made a remix, which is now the A side, and it's become a classic. And the reason why it's so important for me, because this track basically kicked off my entire US career. So this was when I was already DJing a lot in the UK, and I did made it a 138 dance floor track.
So this dance version wouldn't have existed if Patrick Moxey hadn't suggested it to you.
Yeah, exactly. It would have never been a hit as well, because after I made it into this version, it was on the playlist of Radio 1 in the UK as well. So yeah, that really helped my career a lot. So thanks to Patrick Moxey, actually. Yeah.
What did you like about playing in America in those early noughties days?
Well, dance music at the time was very small. I mean, you did really well if you would arrive in Minneapolis, and the club promoter usually picked you up in his own car, and you sold 400 tickets. Really, 400? That was a big deal. It was pre the explosion of dance music. There were no LEDs. It was all clubs. The festivals were the rare exception. That didn't happen until 2008, 2009. But I was very glad to be there for that time because it was a very intimate thing. Everything was vinyl. Everything was a celebration of this music. And it was a very different vibe than what it is now. There was the Amsterdam Dance event was there, but it was only in its 5th year. It was super small. And I have some really good memories of those days. And traveling the world, meeting so many amazing people who are still my friends to this day, a lot. And I'll never forget those days.
Do you think the Amsterdam Dance event itself, ADE, has helped to make the Dutch scene so strong?
I think only in recent years. I mean, at the beginning, around the time when I made this track, Miami Music Week, Winter Music Conference, it was called at the time, was bigger than the Amsterdam Dance event. And it was important to be there because all the big promoters were there and all the big agencies were there. I think now Miami Music Week is basically about Ultra, and it's still there, but it's not as important as it used to be. So yeah, ADE took over, which is easy for me because I'm from the Netherlands and I live close by. It's great, but it's so great to see so many familiar faces. The only thing I wish is that the weather could be a bit better, guys. Sorry about that. On behalf of all the Dutch people, come in July or August, you'll be very happy with the weather here. But it's not looking very well today, is it?
It does quite often seem to rain during ADE, but it doesn't always rain in Amsterdam, does it?
No, we usually have a little bit of an Indian summer, but nope, not this year.
I remember the first Ultra, you were saying about the Ultra Music Festival in Miami, and how at the festival on the beach, the vinyl was kind of flapping off.
Oh yeah.
It was quite hard to play vinyl at a festival and make the stages jumping about.
Oh, I played sets on the beach, and there would be a little bit of wind, and the sand would gather on the vinyl, and I had 2 of my stage managers carefully blowing on the vinyl, making sure that the needle wouldn't skip because there would be too much sand underneath the. Yeah. Those were the days, kids. So here's another one. And actually, we just reprinted this one because there's so much demand for the vinyl, believe it or not. We just pressed another 1,000 copies of this one. And I just give you a very positive story of Patrick Moxie. This is a bit of a negative one, unfortunately. This is Gaia Tuvan. Gaia is a pseudonym or an alter ego of mine that was reborn because of necessity. The true story is this one. I did a track as Gaia back in 2000. I released a track called 4 Elements, and that was signed to Warner's. And at the time, I was signed to United Recordings, so I couldn't use my own name. So that's why I used Gaia for the track 4 Elements. We're now in 2008, and I was signed to Ultra Records. And I don't know why, but I signed 5 albums to Ultra Records.
That's a big, long deal.
It was a long deal. And it also meant that I was doing a compilation series at the time called The State of Trance. And I couldn't put my own tracks on my own compilations. And I was because I was not allowed because of legal reasons. So we were releasing those compilations on Armada in the US. And there was a different label than Ultra. And Ultra wouldn't let me use my own name on my own compilations. It was just the way the deal was structured. And I was actually a little bit frustrated about it. So I wrote this track together with my friend Benno de Goey. And I wanted to release it as Armin van Buuren. But then it meant I couldn't put it on my own compilation in State of Trance 2008. And I really wanted to include it on the compilation. So that's why I revived my alias Gaia. And the rest is history. Who remembers this one? Such a beautiful track. William Orbit did his version of Adagio for Strings by Samuel Barber, which is a classical song. I'm very much into classical music myself, and William Orbit's version is beautiful. It was amazing. I think it was even in the charts in the UK at the time when it came out, right? He did reinterpretations of classical pieces, and it's just monumental. Such a beautiful track. And then Ferry Corsten at the time, he was on fire. He still is. I think he's still a legendary guy and legendary DJ. And Ferry Corsten did this version. That was just, I still think that this is, you have to understand the historical value of this to really appreciate what he did at the time. But the fact that William Orbit asked him to do this version, I remember it was all over Radio 1 and everybody was playing this one. It didn't matter if you were trance, techno, or whatever. This was one of the biggest dance records of 2002, 2003. And it was in the, I think it was number 1 in the UK or something like that, or top 5 at least. And Ferry just did an amazing version. After this, of course, we had so many amazing versions, but I still credit Ferry for doing the first version of this. It's still a legendary trance track, I think.
Wow, and on that emotional note, we're going to have to end it. Thanks very much to Armin for sharing some of his vinyl trance treasures today. Give him a big round of applause.